I am Hariram, an abstract painter. This documentary is to trace my evolution or make an analysis of how I turned out to be an abstract painter. To do this, I have to go back in time. I am born in the lagoon town of Alway in India. Later, after a few years, my parents shifted to Cannanore, where I went to St. Michael's, and St. Michael's was at close proximity to a cliff and the sea coast of Cannanore. Often, after the school bell was done for the day, I walked by the sea coast until dusk, and as monstrous waves dashed about the massive rocks at the cliff, a bizarre feeling of being all alone in a space that was never ending, and this made me see the seascapes as if the surrealists would in a subconscious state of mind. And it was here that I started to draw and to paint. I started as a landscape artist in the early 60s, but with a difference. My landscapes were mindscapes. Death is depressing, though I prefer to be a painter of graveyards, necropolis, gravestones, and so on. In 1977, I received a state award from the Directorate of Archaeology and Museums in Karnataka for my work entitled The Abode of the Dead. But in 1982, 5 years later, I visited London to show my works at the Bradshaw Room, the Mall Galleries Administration Federation of British Artists in London, during which time I visited the Royal Academy and happened to see the works of Bhupan Karkar, Vivan Sundaram, Sudhir Patwardhan, and so on, the ideologists from Baroda. I got much inspired by their works, the social narratives. After nearly 10 years of painting figurative abstractions, I don't want to paint social narratives anymore. This is the state of mind when I become eclectic. I am like in a tranquil universe, a cosmic anomaly. I now feel a sensitivity towards abstraction, and I hibernate for quite some time. And in a subconscious state of mind, I see these dwellings, the dwellings that become the shelter spaces. That's my topic. And the shelter spaces later give way to geometrical abstractions. And about my sensitivity towards abstraction, I will speak about it later. So you see, my works were very eclectic, over which I had no control. And maybe I was totally unconscious to it until recently. I am like a UFO, an unidentified flying object in space, in the art space. I am skeptical when I say but, or I say that no one else can have their final word about my works. Not even me. It means that nobody has a monopoly on the truth. The year 1972, and I am 24 years probably. And during this time, I got this book on abstract painting by Michael Sufer. a 50 years of accomplishment from Kandinsky to the present. I am too early to paint abstracts, and though I got much inspired by this book, and it was a kind of vision for me to end up as an abstract painter. And that's the reason I keep saying that I get the sensation of painting abstracts, or a feel towards abstraction. That happened to me in between several times, because that's the done thing for me. Like, I wanted to be an abstract painter, but had to go through a journey. And though this book was a vision for me, it had nothing to do with what I did in the end. And my abstractions were totally a detour from whatever was happening. And I ended up painting a topic which were my abstractions, the stellar memories. In 1999, I visited Botswana, and I exhibited for the first time my abstract paintings that I did develop there as a body of work, and were exhibited at the National Museum, Monuments and Art Galleries in Gaborone, Botswana. This was a real experience where I met few of these painters, and especially I met an artist who was an abstract painter, and she was from England but settled in Botswana, and she was talking about the conscious reality, the level at which the abstraction is placed as compared to figurative abstractions, where the form content is totally repudiated in abstraction, and the conscious reality of probably nothingness is revealed through a kind of form that is color, but there is an intensity, and there is a grammar by which a periodic development really leads you to a path of abstraction where not only the simplicity but the use of color, the spontaneity, the real gravity of a situation when an abstract painter is involved in abstract painting, the speed, dexterity, and the quality of the work is reached through a real study of abstraction, which is worked out by an artist, a painter of abstracts, patiently until he succeeds in doing his abstract painting, and it could be almost termed as an abstract success. As Dr. Ashrafi Bhagat, an art historian, terms it. Well, the hardest part for an abstract painter is to handle a massive canvas, where size does matter, probably to the viewer or the patron, but not to the artist. And what matters to the artist is the space. What is he going to do with that space, the given space? I have featured some of my works out of the hundreds of works that I did in Mumbai, 100 which were exhibited at the Pandol Art Gallery in 2006. What I learned at the end of the show was that the space was what mattered. I got commissioned to do a large canvas, and I discovered something which I could say as divisional space or divisible space, a space division that I effectively engaged to do a massive canvas. But in the end, I realized that it's not what you fill in that large space, but what matters is what you want to fill in that massive space. I think I am not articulate enough to explain my situation. Apparently, it seems like I am unable to come to terms with my abstract painting, the ones that you just viewed on the documentary. The probability is that I am not convinced with the application on the space, the method of working. It's too crowded and it lacks the spirit of boldness, though it could be dynamic. When I say boldness, it's not about the color, and the spirit of freedom is yet to be felt in my canvas. So what do I do now? I'm not going in for the horizontal, and I go for the vertical canvases, and I call these as enigmatic staging of indistinct forms. And again, after the enigmatic staging of indistinct forms, I come a full circle back to the horizontal and work on my stellar memories, about which I would like to talk about it a little later. By now, I believe in something called the cellular memory, which is probably something like the time travel where one can go back in time, which is possible in theory. But like the grandfather's paradox, it may not be possible practically to travel backwards because they haven't found a time machine as yet. So to make the theory less complicated, I have kind of formulated an idea of the stellar memories, which is the universal memory which creates, and therefore it's a macrocosmic space, and all the other memories are embedded in it. It contains that memory. So the stellar memories could be expressed in a way that the space is filled with the matter and energy that is totally stellar. A space that contains everything that the universe creates and creates on its own, automatically. And therefore, there is a constant, but there is neither consistency, and which keeps traveling from time to time. This is my point of abstraction, and hence I treat this as a detour from whatever theories have been formulated by abstract painters from time to time.